Recently on this channel, we got to check out the Lincoln Nautilus Reserve, a crossover that I actually really loved and also potentially is a candidate for crossover of the year for this channel, but we have a long way to go before we get to that point in 2025. But I've come back to check out the Lincoln Nautilus Premiere. This is the base trim for 2025, and it's still offering a lot of value, a lot of creature comforts, and also I think could still be the pick in the Lincoln lineup and might just be one of the best values out there in the luxury two-row crossover market. In today's video, we're going to check out what this model has to offer in regards to the technology, features, maybe some extra packages, and also see why, if you are looking at buying a luxury crossover right now, you want a vehicle that feels luxurious, upscale, and also maybe a bit more quieter and not as sports tuned, then maybe taking a look at the Lincoln Nautilus Premiere might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Gervais Lincoln in Lowell, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to check out the Lincoln Nautilus Premiere. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Lincoln inventory. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For 2025 with the Lincoln Nautilus Premiere, you're looking at a starting cost of just under $52,000. This is the base trim, as I mentioned before, and this is going to give you a lot of flexibility at this price point because you don't really notice it in pictures or even videos. But the Nautilus comes in at a length of 193 inches, which if you were to compare that with some rivals, that is identical to the Lexus RX 350 and also about 2 inches shorter than a BMW X5. A lot of journalists do compare the Nautilus to three-row crossovers that are priced around $60,000. And yes, I think lengthwise it is a direct competitor, but at $52,000, you could cross-shop this with the BMW X3, Alfa Romeo Stelvio, Mercedes-Benz GLC, and the Nautilus could be offering a lot more in regards to that value because with the larger dimensions, you get better interior space, you get better practicality, and as a daily driver, with this being a luxury-focused SUV and crossover, it might become a bit more of an appealing choice, especially at just over $50,000. Now let's get acclimated with the design once again for this model because there is some slight differences compared to the Reserve that we had recently featured. So up front, you are going to receive full LED headlights and LED daytime running lights. Sadly though, the daytime running lights do not integrate into that front grille like we'd experienced with the Reserve. That's a very classy look. This is very similar to that Lincoln Aviator. Now you're still going to have the chrome accents for that front grille, giving you a nice classy and upscale appearance. You see those same accents for the lower portion of the front bumper. What Lincoln is doing here with their design language, I think is perfect for this market. And again, you don't typically find stuff like this out of a vehicle at just over $50,000. Like we saw with the Reserve, you are going to have functional side air curtains, giving you that better airflow and also helping out with that fuel efficiency as well. Another thing too that's really nice to see for a base trim is that you are going to have some gloss black trim that gives you a nice two-tone look to this model. So everything with the Lincoln Nautilus is being luxurious, upscale, and also refined. And this really means a lot, especially for a base trim such as the Premiere. Now, as you make your way over to the side profile, you are going to receive 19-inch alloy wheels. These are standard. You can upgrade to 20s if you so desire. Now, for most vehicles, though, if you were to go with the 20s or possibly even 19s, you would say, all right, there should be a lot of road noise entering the cabin for this vehicle, and also maybe the ride quality isn't going to be as nice or as plush. But with Lincoln, this is a luxury-focused crossover, and also you do have acoustic glass, so road noise shouldn't be an issue, but we'll find out later on during that test drive. But I do like the design of these 19s, go very well with this model. Also, one thing I want to point out here too is that by going with the Premiere, you're going to have that cladding around the wheel arches and side profiles. So if you want to go with the full paint finish, you're going to have to go with that Reserve. Now, as you can tell, and we talked about this with that Reserve, is that we have the Nautilus badge written out on the side profile. It's not in blue lettering. If it was, we would know we'd have the hybrid powertrain under the hood. You're also going to have gloss black side mirror caps with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Now, by going with the Premiere, you're not going to have the roof rails, so the roof rails do add a bit to the design of this model, so keep that in mind if you are looking at buying one of these for 2025. Then as you make your way around to the back, again, the same design that we had with that Reserve, you're going to have the full LED light bar that runs the length of the rear fascia, which is a very classy look, but also very trendy, and we see a lot of this in the Lincoln product line. Then for the lower portion of the front bumper, you're going to have gloss black trim outlining those fake exhaust outlets like we saw on that Reserve, but there are going to be some exhaust outlets beneath the bumper for that cleaner appearance. But all in all though, I like the design of this model. You have the chrome accents along with the gloss black trim, very classy and also a bit more conservative as well for a vehicle in this market. But either way, whether you go with a Premiere, a Black Label, or even that Reserve, this is a very classy and upscale looking two-row crossover. And while we're taking a look at the rear fascia, might as well go over the cargo area once again for this model. So with the Nautilus, you are going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the second row seat, you're looking at right on 36.5 cubic feet of room, which would outclass many vehicles in this market, including the Lexus RX 350. You got to remember, this is still $52,000, so this undercuts a lot of three-row crossovers in the luxury segments. And again, this is providing a lot of value. It's the interior space for me that really surprises me, aside from the technology that we have here for this vehicle. There's plenty of room back here for all your luggage. If you are going on a road trip with the family, I think you could probably have about 12 to 13 bags of luggage back here with no issues. Now, there are going to be some slight side pockets on both sides of the cargo area, which will allow you to fit some smaller items, maybe a couple water bottles, car detail equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. Now, you are going to have the ability to go with a spare tire, so that way if you encounter a flat on those road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road, but that is not equipped on our model today. Then with the second row seats folded, let's put them down here, you're going to receive right around 71 cubic feet of room, which again would outclass a lot of compact crossovers. So if you're someone who doesn't need a three-row vehicle, but you are someone that wants a spacious and practical daily driver for you and your family, that's where the Lincoln Nautilus is most certainly going to impress. Taking a peek under the hood for the 2025 Lincoln Nautilus we have today, we have a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, producing 250 horsepower and 275 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission, and we have all-wheel drive. Now, you can go with the hybrid 4-cylinder like we experienced with the Reserve last time we checked out the Nautilus. I personally think it's the better powertrain for 2025, but we'll talk about that later on when we take this vehicle out for a quick test drive. Now, with this powertrain, though, you are going to notice a bit of a sacrifice here in regards to that fuel efficiency. You're going to have right around 21 miles per gallon in the city and 29 miles per gallon on the highway. However, with this powertrain and its power output, it falls right in line with many vehicles in this segment. So it's not necessarily a sacrifice, but if you are someone looking to also get the maximum amount of fuel range out of a vehicle at this price point, going with the hybrid would be the better decision. Hopping inside the Lincoln Nautilus we have today, we are greeted by power adjustable heated leatherette seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side having 3-position memory for added convenience. Now, there is one important optional package that is available that I think makes the Premiere a great choice under $60,000. And also don't forget that right now, currently, now I know if you're watching this video in July or August, maybe not so, you do qualify for the employee pricing discounts, which then cuts into that price tag for the optional package. Let's talk about it for a minute. So for close to $4,800 for the Premiere 2 package, you're going to receive a long list of features for the interior that really elevates the driving experience and ownership experience for this model. You're going to receive the auto air refresh feature with digital scent, so much like we saw with the Reserve, you'll be able to use the aromas for the interior. I think that's a go-to for this model. A hands-free liftgate, panoramic Vista moonroof, also an upgraded Revel audio system with 14 speakers. We only have 10 speakers for our model today. Heated outboard seats and then ventilated seats for the front row. So you're going to receive a lot to work with here for the Premiere 2. And again, with the employee pricing discounts, at least for the next 2 months, this would be a great choice. Take advantage of that if you are looking at buying a Lincoln Nautilus in 2025. With the leatherette seating material, though, it's still very comfortable, plush, and supportive. Not as aggressively bolstered as what I experienced with the Reserve, but you would expect that here for a base trim for 2025. But either way, I'm very comfortable and happy here being behind the wheel of the Nautilus. The real talking point here for the Premiere is the full digital gauge cluster that we have here. It's 48 inches. Because for a lot of manufacturers at $52,000, you're getting the smaller digital gauge cluster. You're getting the smaller infotainment system. You're going to be spending an extra $10,000 for the better head head unit or better technology. That isn't the case here for the Lincoln Nautilus Premiere. In fact, you still get Blue Cruise here at $52,000. You still get that. So you're receiving a lot of value here, technologically speaking. On top of this, you still get the same functionality for that digital gauge cluster. You have the navigation system. You also can customize the second half of the screen. We'll talk about that in a minute. You have a digital speedometer. You have the traffic sign recognition. Then also on the steering wheel, which is power adjustable as well, like we saw with the Reserve. You're going to have touch sensitive icons on both sides of the steering wheel, customizing the volume and tuning, and also your onboard assistant. On the left side will be the button that controls your adaptive cruise control settings and lane centering. Everything is the exact same here, and that means a lot to me. Sure, you're missing out on the exterior design a bit, you're missing out on some other features, but at $52,000, you look at the interior and you're like, this is a $52,000 crossover? You know, this looks like a $60,000 or $65,000 vehicle. So I think through the Premiere 2 package, then this vehicle does feel like an upscale daily driver. So either way, you can't lose here, whether you're going with a base Premiere or Premiere 2. Then taking a look at the infotainment system, you have the 11.1-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with the Google Assistant, Google Play Store. It's all Google built-in software here, such as your Google Maps as well. At the bottom of the screen will be your quick access icons for your dual zone climate control up front, AC, front and rear defrosters, fan speed and fan direction, then also your heated steering wheel and heated seats. Then on the left side of the screen will be quick access icons for your home screen, then also your vehicle settings. So from here, you have your drive modes, your ambient lighting, your auto vehicle hold, traction control, valet mode, vehicle status, and settings. Now I know some of you might be saying, wait a minute, we don't get Lincoln Rejuvenate? Nope, unfortunately, we do not. No massaging seats, no nice smelling scents for the interior for this model. I think you might want to go with that Reserve for that particular feature and also that experience with the Nautilus. Beneath that will be a layout with all your widgets in place for your Google Maps, Play Store, Google Assistant, then of course Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Now at the bottom of the screen will be your YouTube tab as well. You can watch YouTube videos from this screen, so that way when you are stationary, maybe you're grabbing a quick bite to eat on a longer road trip, you can watch your favorite YouTube videos from here. And then the last icon on the left will be for your digital gauge cluster and what you see on the second half of the screen. So from here, you can display the music, your tire pressure monitoring system, your time, then your fuel economy, trip 1, trip 2, and then also your outside weather. So you can customize this to your liking, and nothing's different here compared to what we experienced in the Reserve. That means a lot to me. When placing the Nautilus in reverse, you are going to receive a rear backup camera with trajectory and also a top view camera as well, helping you park this vehicle in tight spots on a city street or in a tight garage. So this is all standard stuff. Love to see that. I'm glad to see that Lincoln didn't cut corners for their base trim for 2025. Beneath the head unit, you will find your piano keys for your gear selector here, which does look quite nice. It's very classy. I know some people would prefer a traditional gear shifter, but that's not really offered in the Ford product line, so I'm not expecting that in Lincoln products either. You're going to find buttons for your auto start stop, your hazards, your park assist features, your max AC, then of course your camera systems, and then your drive mode selector. So from here you have normal, conserve, excite, slippery, and then also deep conditions like we saw with the Reserve for heavy snow and sand. I don't think you'll be going off-road with this vehicle and taking on sand, but hey, it's at least there, so you will have some ability to take on some of those elements that you'll be facing throughout the year. You're going to find a wireless horn judging pad here well within arm's reach, a USB-C and USB-A outlet, 2 cup holders. Then for the standard storage compartment, there is enough room for some smaller items. You're going to find 2 USB-C inputs, a 12-volt outlet, and a tray for your key fob. And then to round out the front seating area, since we don't have that panoramic moonroof, it is optional, but is it necessary? Maybe, maybe not. That's up to you guys to decide. Now for passengers in the second row, they're going to receive right around 43 inches of legroom, which is pretty much class leading in this market. You are not going to find anything better at around $52,000. Maybe at $60,000, $70,000, you might say, all right, I can find better. But with the Lincoln Nautilus at $52,000 for a base trim, this is almost unheard of in this market because, like I said before, you're comparing this to a BMW X3, an Alfa Romeo Stelvio, possibly at Lexus RX 350, and then on the higher end, the BMW X5. but none of those models come close to 43 inches of legroom. You would have to look at the mainstream markets with the Honda CR-V, which I think comes in at 41. But still though, the Nautilus outclasses the CR-V in that regard. So if you're someone that does have taller passengers sitting in the back on a weekly basis, or you have a growing family and you want an upscale, luxurious crossover, look no further than the Nautilus in that regard. Now also, we don't have leather seats like we saw with the Reserve, but the leatherette seats are really plush and comfortable and very supportive. So for those longer commutes, for those longer road trips, you're going to be comfortable in this vehicle, whether you're sitting up front or in the second row. Now, like I said before, with the Reserve, you can squeeze in a third person in the center. This vehicle is actually quite wide. I feel like the camera is very far away from me, which is a bit of a surprise for a vehicle at this price point. So you can definitely have tall passengers sit back here. They'll not be feeling cramped or claustrophobic, and they won't be fighting for that elbow room. Now, you don't have a panoramic moonroof, at least for our model. It is optional with the Premiere, with the Premiere 2 package. If you want that, go for it. But to maximize headroom, this will be a great choice to go with. Also back here, like we saw with the Reserve, you are going to have 2 USB-C inputs on the backs of these seats, so that way when you are back here on your iPads or iPhones, you can charge them up on those longer road trips. Now, we don't have heated outboard seats on this model. That is once again only available for the Premiere 2 package. So again, you can get a very well-equipped model with the Premiere, but you're going to be spending about $4,800 extra. You also have 2 center-mounted air vents, and then to round out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. In my last video for the Lincoln Nautilus, I received a comment saying, a Turbo 4 at $70,000 just isn't a large enough powertrain to be competitive in this market. Well, what about at 52 grand? Because at $52,000, you're cross-shopping this with many manufacturers that use Turbo 4s that are very close to this size of a powertrain. Also, with our model having the full gas-powered powertrain, we have 250 horsepower, 275 pound-feet of torque, and an 8-speed automatic transmission. Falls right in line with many competitors like a Lexus RX 350, possibly even a BMW X5, although the X5 comes in at over $60,000, so not a direct competitor for the Premiere, but still though, size-wise, right in line. So if you're looking for a larger 2-row crossover, this becomes a bit more of an appealing choice at 52 grand. Now, I personally still like the hybrid 4-cylinder because the hybrid was quieter, a bit more docile, and the eCVT simulated the gear shifts quite nicely, which, you know, many years ago, we wouldn't even consider a hybrid. We would just go with the full gas-powered model. 2025 is not as clear cut. It comes down to what you're looking for if you are prioritizing fuel efficiency. But since we're using this full gas-powered model today, let's get on the highway. We are currently in Excite mode and see what this Turbo 4 has to offer and how it differs to that hybrid 4-cylinder. Now, just like I experienced with the Reserve, it's not a sports tuned suspension, so there is some body roll in the corners. However, with the Reserve that I had featured, we had the adaptive suspension, which changes the game in many ways, because you are going to notice the bumps and imperfections, and you are going to feel some of those imperfections too. So it's not going to be as luxurious or as upscale as what we experienced with the higher trim, but still though, for the Premiere, with this Turbo 4, puts the power down very nicely. And I can pass slower drivers with ease. Now again, not going to be sports tuned. It's not going to feel like a BMW X3 or an Alfa Romeo Stelvio, but still though, for those of you who do go on those longer commutes, you're on the highway, you're going to have no issues passing slower drivers or merging onto the highway very safely. Also, at highway speeds, interior insulation is still very good here. I do notice some wind noise, but outside of that, it's still a very isolating cabin like I experienced with the Reserve. Now, as I mentioned before, with this Turbo 4, we have experienced this numerous times in the Ford family of products, and I think it's a solid powertrain for the Lincoln Nautilus. On the brakes, not too bad here. There is some travel on that brake pedal, but these aren't Brembos, so I'm not expecting anything different here. But I think with the Nautilus, more importantly, especially for the Premiere, is the technology, like I talked about before. The full 48-inch digital gauge cluster here, this embarrasses a lot of manufacturers at this price point. Also, a Google built-in software here for the infotainment system. So you are receiving a lot of technology at $52,000 for a base trim, and that is rather impressive. You know, that's where I think Lincoln can be quite competitive in this market, where, you know, yeah, you're going head-to-head with BMW, you're going head-to-head with Audi and Mercedes-Benz, but if you can give buyers a better experience and a more tech-focused experience, maybe you draw those buyers in, maybe you convert those buyers to Lincoln. But it's also, of course, the driving experience too, the driving dynamics. This kind of reminds me of a Volvo XC60, Volvo XC90, possibly a Genesis GV80. You can really cross-shop this with a lot of luxury-focused manufacturers. And sure, I think that some people, some journalists would say, oh, it needs to be sports-tuned, it needs to feel like a Ford Explorer ST. I don't think so necessarily. I think for those of you looking for an upscale daily driver that is family-friendly, practical, and also affordable, right? At $52,000, this is affordable. That's what gives the Nautilus a competitive advantage. There's a lot to work with here, which is why I've come back to feature this model once again, because I think the Premiere is providing a lot of value to customers right now, and also factor in that you do get employee pricing right now until the end of June. So you can really take advantage of what Lincoln and Ford is offering here. I do think that going with the Premiere 2 would be the better choice, because you are going to receive a lot more creature comforts and amenities. But if you're one of those people who don't need a panoramic moonroof, you don't need heated and ventilated front seats, and you don't need all those creature comforts and amenities, at $52,000, you're receiving a lot here. And that's why I think the Lincoln Nautilus has gotten me so excited, because there's not too many manufacturers in this segment and at its price point where you sit there and think, wow, this is actually a really interesting buying opportunity. And on top of that, there's not too many manufacturers outside of the German competitors like the BMW X3, Audi Q5, Mercedes-Benz GLC, where you sit there and think, you know what? I'd rather go with a Lincoln, I'd rather go with a Lexus, I'd rather go with an Alfa Romeo. So all in all, after this quick test drive with the Lincoln Nautilus Premiere, yes, I still think you should go with the hybrid 4-cylinder. You got the better fuel economy, but also more power as well, but you can't lose either way. What I think, though, is more important here for the Lincoln Nautilus is that it does feel luxurious. It has technology that can't compete with rivals in this market. And also with the Premiere 2 package, you're receiving a lot of creature comforts and amenities at around $56,000. Then again, factor in the employee pricing for the next 2 months, and you cut into that extra cost for the Premiere 2 package. So at around $55,000, you're receiving a well-equipped model, you're receiving a vehicle that feels luxurious, upscale, refined, and there's not too many competitors at this price point that could claim the same. And this right here is what I want to see more of from the Lincoln brand. I want to see this from the Corsair. I want to see this from the Aviator. Now we're going to see this from the Lincoln Navigator. But I think that what Lincoln is providing here is something a bit unique in the lineup, but also a product that is very competitive in its class, making it possibly a great choice in the two-row crossover luxury market. And that's why I still think this is one of the best Lincolns you can buy right now today, and might just be one of the best crossovers you can buy in this segment. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 Lincoln Nautilus Premiere. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.